Hey everybody, this is James, and today we're going to take a look at some of the games from GamesPlusJam, our community game jam that ended last weekend, and the voting just ended for the jam a couple of days ago at this point when the video is going up. So I thought I'd start off by just taking a look at the game that I made for the jam. This was my game, Unlimited Beasts, which was a pretty simple game. Didn't quite end up being exactly what I wanted it to be, but that's just part of the fun of making a game jam. The basic idea of this game is you have to survive for as long as you can. It's kind of like Vampire Survivors is a big game in this style that came out a few months ago that people went wild for, and I was kind of intrigued about how the mechanics of that game work, so I figured let's try and make that for the jam. And we had a few things we wanted to do. The theme for the jam was mix it up. And my idea was to mix up that kind of game with the kind of upgrading system of Loop Hero and the kind of stamina-based system of the Dark Souls kind of games, which didn't all quite get in there. I did get the Dark Souls stuff, so you have the stamina bar down the bottom that controls all the attacks that happen. The attacks are all automatic, and every time you level up, at least in this version of the game, this is the post-jam version, you get a new pair of weapons for at the moment. We've got some giant swords that pop out of the character, and you pick up these little collectibles to level up. But there was supposed to be a system when you leveled up, you could also upgrade your weapons or swap weapons or things like that, or collect armor and different upgrades for the player, which didn't quite make it in. But that's part of game jams, is part of doing these things and making it fun. So you basically just have to try and stay alive for as long as you can. Again, if this was going to be a full game, every time you died, you'd get new upgrades to unlock and things like that would be the basic idea. But it was pretty fun to work on. It was also pretty fun just running around trying to survive all these monsters. I had a good old time. But we're not just here to look at my game. We're here to look at some of the amazing games that everyone in the community made. So let's dive in with the first game. So first up, we have Degrees by Samu Ghosts, or Ghosts, or G05TZ. I'm very bad at pronouncing these names, but that's okay. This is an awesome game. This was voted the best game by the community as well, and is probably one of my favourite games in the jam altogether. Well, that's why it's in this video. But the idea of the game is you run around this little house and you just manage the temperature of each room. So if it's too cold, you have to use the radiators to heat it up. If it's too hot, you open the windows to let the air out. Very, very simple premise, there we go, but very well executed and a whole bunch of fun just running around trying to manage these different rooms. It took me a few goes to actually successfully complete it, but you've got the time ticking down, so you've got a time limit to get it all done in, and managing these different rooms is actually a lot of fun. And I could definitely see this game being expanded out, which is a similar theme you see with a few different games here. See it being expanded out into something more, having different obstacles to get around and try and manage the rooms, or have someone else, an AI character, running around opening windows when you don't want them to, so you have to make sure that the rooms are all managed correctly. There's just a lot of ways you could go with this game. It's pretty cool, and I really enjoyed it. Next up, we have Potion Academy by Jean Lee, or John Lee. Again, pronunciations. This game is such a cool take on the rhythm game genre. The idea of the game is you have to play with controller, and you're using the left and right stick to control the separate hands. And it seems pretty straightforward at first, but as the game goes on, you start flipping sides of which side your hand is supposed to be on, grabbing these little potions, and as the song kind of continues, it gets more and more frantic and harder to manage. And the difficulty level of it is pitched really well. As I said, it starts off quite simple, but as the song goes on, it gets harder and harder. And again, this is another game I could see easily being expanded out into something more. If you got a whole score tracking system on screen, and it was telling you how well you're grabbing these on time and stuff like that, there's a lot of ways you could go with this game to make it even more fun than it already is. But definitely, for a game jam game, absolutely fantastic and executed really, really well. Next up, we have Zombom by Carlos Rodriguez and Asturias, which is, again, a very nice simple premise. This is what works really well for game jams, is having a simple premise and then executing it really well. So the idea here is you've got a car, which is, I believe, is your family inside the car, and you have to help them survive so the zombies don't get close to your car. You run around shooting them, and you also have to push these explosives into obstacles in the car's way. It's a really cool game. It is executed, as I said, really well. It's quite frantic moving around. The speed that the player moves around at is really, really good. It really makes you feel like you can quickly get around to the different areas, because you can often find in games like this that the player's a little bit slow and you're a little bit plodding moving around the map. But you move around really, really fast like a rocket ship. I wish you could say the same thing for whoever's driving this car. They do not seem worried about these zombies around you at all. They're just kind of leisurely taking a nice slow drive across the map. But hey, you can't choose your family, right? From one kind of frantic action to some more frantic action, but this time retro goodness. This is Atari Mix by Internet 8. This is a cool little mix of Pong, Breakout, and Asteroids all bundled up together into one quite fun and cool game. I really like the idea of this. It's a whole bunch of fun, kind of just trying to manage the two different aspects of the game. So you control the paddle on the right by moving your mouse up and down, and you use WA and S and D to control the little ship of the asteroid ship over on the left. So you have to try and destroy all the blocks and try to avoid blowing up your paddle on the right at the same time. It was a fun little discovery I had when I was playing the game and I accidentally shot myself with the bullets from the ship to the paddle on the other side. Really well executed, nice and simple again, but is a lot of fun, especially for a Game Jam game. Next up, from one black and white frenetic action to a little bit more slower paced, we have That Weird Zoo Game by Master Magpie, which is an amazing game. It's basically a puzzle game, but the idea is you have different parts, different animal body parts. You have to mix them all together on this little chalkboard against this wall here. Mix all the different pieces together to satisfy different things. For example, this Crocobrapus over here is thin-skinned, so you need to give him a body that will remove that thin-skinned nature. So yeah, each individual piece has certain elements that that they apply to the different creatures. There are also, each piece is either a carnivorous piece or a vegetarian piece. So you have to make sure you match them up with specific animals. And as you mix and match the different pieces onto the animals, their names all get added into the mix as well. So, or they all get kind of redecided. So you can see we've got a Monbra over there. And what are we going to get over here? If I take these squid things, there we go. We've got a Giradolepus, the classic animal that we all know very well. This is a cool game. It's quite fun trying to manage all the different pieces as well. As you unlock more animals, you'll find you'll have to mix and match all the pieces into different places to make it all fit together. And it works really well. It's a cool game with a cool concept. Another really cool game, this time in 3D, is Graphis Crypt by Zerk, Schneido, Ramita, and Jadith. This is a cool game. You wake up inside an Egyptian tomb. You've been trapped inside, and you have to escape. And you basically run around solving some different puzzles, like this little pipe problem over here, which, as you solve each piece of these puzzles, you will reveal some scrambled text that's on a doorway nearby, and the scrambled text will show a little clue to help you get out of the room itself. It's a fun little experience. It lasts about 5 to 10 minutes, which is exactly what a game jam should do. And you feel really satisfied afterwards. You're like, oh, that was a cool little thing. Made by a small little team, and you can see it pays off really well. You've got some cool models and everything, and a really satisfying movement, and it all feels good in the game. Definitely worth having a little go yourself. And from one 3D game where you're trapped inside a small area to another, This Game Has Everything by Nick Noobles, Wipa, and Not Tom. This game is just cool. The core concept of the game is you're loading into a huge, massive game that contains everything that you would possibly want in a game. But the whole game just takes place inside this little loading room in general. It's very funny, well put together. As you go through the sequence, there's a narrator talking the whole time, filling you in about what's going on, and you unveil various different things in the little area here. It's really cool, definitely one worth checking out. I certainly wouldn't want to spoil too much of the stuff that happens in here. Again, it only takes 5 to 10 minutes, absolutely worth checking out and having a go yourself because it's hilarious.
No, far too intense.
And I'm always a fan in general of things that are funny. And this game also has some nice funny elements, which is, I think, Senator Johnson's Smoothie Simulator by Helovids, which is fairly simple and straightforward. The idea is you're given this little colour in the top right, and you've requested to match that by mixing different fruits together to make a smoothie. Pretty straightforward.
Make smoothie.
But every time you do that, you get a little guy coming in and in the most hilarious way saying make smoothie, which I just enjoy that. Very simple and straightforward, but it works really nicely for me. And also the mechanic of trying to match the colours really works quite well. Works. I think the only thing that would add to this is if there was some kind of time pressure, but also at the same time, not having a time pressure is quite relaxing and makes it not too stressful in terms of how the game works. But that wasn't the only smoothie making game that we had. Well, not smoothie, but drinks making game, let's say. This is Dice It Boba by B. Dan Riley and SL Station, which is a really cool twist on this whole mechanic. So these cool little ducks, or birds, I think they're ducks, because they're quacking away. They appear, they want some different things, and you have to mix the various ingredients into the cup. And what's really cool is it has this mechanic of you have to roll dice, and the dice get randomly assigned to the different areas, so you have to re-roll to make sure you get a dice from each different area added in. I don't think there's anything in particular about the values of the dice in each area. I think that doesn't really matter. But as this game goes on, it's playing to the sound of Hall of the Mountain King, a classic musical piece that gets more and more intense as the game goes on, and you basically have to fill out as many of these orders as you can before the music reaches its crescendo and comes to an end. And it gets really stressful as it goes on because the ducks start having less and less patience for you filling out their orders, but it's a lot of fun. It's really cool, really well executed, and of course look at these, the visuals of the game are fantastic. I love this kind of art style in general anyway, but it was really well executed, looks fantastic, plays fantastic, and the mechanics work really well. Another fantastic entry in this game jam, probably in my top 3 of all the games in the jam, I would say. And sometimes when you're running a business like that, all you want to do is take your business lifestyle to the streets and start doing some battling. And this brings us to Business Brawl by Brainoid and Honest Dan. And this game was really fun. It's fairly straightforward and simple. At the start of each round, you are given a whole bunch of guys on your team, but they all have certain clothes that they're wearing. And the idea is the enemies will have different clothes. You need to make sure you don't mix up who's on each side as you battle them. So for example, on this team, we've got 2 sets of grey suit wearing guys, but they have different coloured ties, and it's quite easy to lose track of which ones are which. And also it just looks fun. When you eliminate a guy, they go flying off into the distance with some hilarious ragdoll action. That's whenever you hit one of your own team, you can only hit your own team 5 times and you lose the game. But it's not too hard, but I did fail a couple of times because, you know, hey, that's how I work. But it's a lot of fun. It gets harder to identify which people are on which team as the levels go onwards. There's one level where your team all have black suits and red ties, and the other team have black suits and black ties but with red shirts, which is kind of a little bit awkward to see, but in the best way. It works really nicely. Very straightforward and simple, but it works really well, and I really enjoyed my time playing through this game. And speaking of simple games that are executed very well, that's something that I always find is really good to do in game jams. Something I don't always follow through with myself because I like to try random things. But executing on something simple really well works really well. And this is Switch Up by Rogue Studios. As you can see, the graphics are very simple. There's just blocks running around, but that can work really nicely. The idea of this game is you run around collecting these little objects of some kind. I don't know what they are. You bring them back to this little green zone, and that's pretty much the basic idea. But every 10 seconds, the world will change what's happening. Sometimes you can just be running around playing as normal. Other times you can have Hulk strength throwing your little blocks. Sometimes the gravity will change really small. Sometimes the camera will zoom in really close, or maybe you'll get super speed like this. And it always has a little bit of explanation of what's going on at the top of the screen too. Again, super duper simple. There we go, there's super gravity here, it's impossible to jump. I only wish that each round lasted a little bit longer. You only kind of get like 90 seconds in each round. I think that could have been maybe like 3 minutes or so, because by the time you actually get to the point where the pickups are appearing, they don't appear for the first while. So by the time they even start appearing, it's kind of hard to even know what's going to happen with the game. Pretty cool though. I really enjoyed it. Simple and lots of fun. And the final entry that we're going to take a look at today is the MXR. The MXR? It's MXR by Beard or Die, which is a really cool little music sequencer. And this is the kind of stuff that I really enjoy in game jams, when people don't just make a game, but a tool that you can play around with and have some fun. And the idea of this is really simple. You can place these different beats in different places, but if you right click on them, it'll do a little tweak to change the sound of what's going on in the game. And it's a lot of fun just playing around and seeing what works nicely. But they also added a loading and saving system into the game, which involves using letter codes to be able to reload them. But that means you can share the tracks that you save with other people and see what works really nicely. And as you play around with the game, you start adding in all these different elements, and it starts filling out and being a lot of fun to do. It's a really fun tool to play around with, really well executed, looks amazing. I love the style of this. It's really clean and simple, but it works really nicely. But as I said, you can see you can load in other people's stuff. So I'll just pop in a couple of different ones here, which helps give you a bit of a sense of the different kind of things you can create in the game. It's cool. I really like it. I really enjoy it. It's kind of fun to play around and see what the actual different tweaked sound effects are, and seeing what kind of fun stuff people can make as well. So there's a few people shared things on the itch page of stuff that works really nicely, and on the jam results page as well. So if you want to go and play some of these games, I absolutely recommend doing it. There's a link in the description to the games that were submitted in the jam, and you can go check them out for yourself. Make sure you go and check the games out and leave some feedback so people can see what cool things they made and which stuff that you really enjoy too. Thanks everybody who participated. Of course, these are some of my favorites. I couldn't cover every single game that was entered. We had about 70 games added in, and we don't have time to take a look at all of them, but everybody who participated in the jam is amazing. I really love playing through all these games. I had a lot of fun with the cool things that people made. It was awesome to see what kind of cool stuff people could come up with based off the one team, and we got a lot of variety in the submissions to the jam too. So I can't wait until next year when we do another one of these game jams. It's going to be a lot of fun. Keep being awesome out there, keep making cool things, and I'll keep checking all of them out along the way. I don't know what kind of sign off that was to the jam, but hey, thanks for watching.